Hi, Monika ma'am.
Hi, Devesh.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Very well. Great.
Yeah.
So, Monika ma'am is going to take this session with the
Okay.
students where she'll uh, teach English, I suppose, and
Mhm.
that will be followed by towards the end at around 3:30. I'll invite you to speak about anxiety management during the test. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Hi. Good afternoon, ma'am. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, good afternoon. Can you
Afternoon.
hear me now?
Yes, very well. So Pavni is the career counselor at Bangalore International School, and
Hi, hello, Pavni.
Hi. 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 How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
All right. So,
yeah, and Monika ma'am is the tutor for at SAT and Paper. They are helping us with the whole test prep program right now. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Nice meeting you, Monica.
same here. Pleasure is all mine. So, we're going to cover grammar today, Devesh. And
Okay.
I need to take this up for 30 minutes.
Yes, yeah. So till 2:30, I'm sorry, till 3:30, and at 3:30, then I'll invite Pavni to uh, talk about anxiety management during the test. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
do we have any Q&A here?
We might have. So if there are any, I'll just moderate them. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Great. There's still 4 minutes left. We'll start at 3. I'll quickly kick off the session and I'll just start. I'll introduce you and Pavni, and then I'll hand it over to you. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Devesh Lathi from the Next Genius team, and I welcome all of you for this session on SAT English Grammar today with Monika ma'am from SAT and Paper. Also joining us today is Ms. Pavni, who is the career counselor at Bangalore International School, a very experienced counselor, has helped hundreds of students across her career at Bangalore International School, and before that she was at the international school in Hyderabad. So a very warm welcome to both of you. It's great to have you here. So today, after the grammar session, Ms. Pavni will share some tips with us, some tips on the test prep, SAT and ACT prep with all of you students towards the end of the session. So I encourage all of you to to be here throughout the session and benefit from this. And without any further ado, I invite Monika ma'am to take over the session. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Devesh. Hello, all of you. Let's get started with the writing section of the SAT. So as you must be aware, SAT writing section is section number 2 on the test, and we do have grammar, punctuation, and rhetoric questions in that particular section. So today's agenda of the session is grammar. So there are basically about 12 to 14 questions of grammar in the writing section of every SAT that we get. So let's start with what all topics do we have in the grammar section. So I'll be sharing my screen so that I can mention the topics here. The most important topic there is verb agreement and tenses. So we'll return to these topics one by one. Verb agreement and tenses is the first one. And then we do get questions on pronoun agreement. I'll give you example questions on each of them. Just a moment. Pronoun agreement. Next category of questions in grammar section is modifiers. I'll be explaining each of them in detail later on. And then we have a question or two on faulty comparison. This question apparently looks very, very easy, but turns out to be the one where most of the people make mistakes. And then we have idiom questions. So idioms in American English basically means uses of preposition as particles. So we'll come to those as well. And then we do get a few questions on parallelism also. That's basically sentence structure questions. So let's pick them up one by one. First and the most important is verb agreement and tenses. So there are two aspects to what you get in these type of questions. You get about 2 to 4 questions from this topic in each test. Okay, so agreement, verb agreement basically means the subject of the verb, subject of the sentence and the verb have to be in agreement with each other. So if the subject is he, verb should be is. If the subject is they, then obviously the verb should be are. Now, this looks easy, but turns out to be very, very tricky question on the test. And sometimes they do add tenses angle to it also. Tenses basically, wherein the subject verb agreement question is very, very sentence based. You just need to read that sentence, figure out what the subject is and choose the verb accordingly. But for the tenses part of it, you need to check the whole paragraph. If the entire context is in past tense, probably you should be choosing a verb that is in the past tense. If the context is in future, then even if your verb agreement is proper, if you end up choosing a verb of past tense, that will turn out to be the wrong answer here. Okay, so there are basically 3-4 types of, 3-4 lessons or rules that you should follow while doing a subject verb agreement question. One may be that if you have an and between two subjects, even when they sound singular, they turn out to be plural subjects. So if I say there dash a man and a child in the park, I'll be tempted to say is there, and that will be wrong answer. If I say a man and a child, that's basically two subjects and it should be are and not is. Similarly, if you have a preposition right after the subject, then that part needs to be cancelled out. We call it a prepositional phrase. We'll do a few actual SAT questions where I'm going to show you how these lessons need to be applied while doing those questions. Similarly, if you have an interrupter, anything between the two commas, then that part needs to be cut out from the sentence when you're looking for the verb of the subject or the sentence. So if I say he as well as his friends, then as well as his friends is basically an interrupter. When you write it, you should actually put it in two commas. And that part then becomes the extra piece. We remove it from the sentence. The subject is he and the verb should obviously be is. And if I flip it around, his friends as well as he. So as well as he becomes the interrupter here. I can remove it. My subject is friends. So the verb has to change to are here. Right, so these are some of the lessons or rules you need to use when you're doing the subject-verb agreement question. And then if there is a tenses angle to it, then we need to look at the entire context of the paragraph and choose our answer accordingly. For pronoun agreement questions, the pronoun also has to be, it has to match with the noun that you're using it for. So if the noun is feminine, obviously you cannot say a he there. If the noun is masculine, you can't say a she as a pronoun. Another angle to the pronoun question is that wherever you have an ambiguity in the pronoun, as in if you're using two nouns and you're not clarifying for which noun you're using this pronoun for, then that leads to another kind of error in pronouns. And that's called ambiguity in pronoun or ambiguous pronoun. So while using pronoun or doing these type of questions, you need to have clear sight on the noun for which you're using this pronoun and then choose the pronoun accordingly. As I told you, there can be 2-3 kinds of errors in pronouns. One is the gender mismatch. Another can be the ambiguity in the pronoun. You're not clarifying which noun is pronoun being used for. Like if I say, David and Tom are coming to my house at 5 o'clock, he will come at, are coming to my house, he will come at 5 and he will come at 6. Now, who will come at 5 and who will come at 6 are not clear. So obviously we shouldn't be using pronoun in such cases. I'll be better using the, nouns there, although that turns the sentence a little lengthy, but that's totally fine. Another type of mistakes in, pronouns can be the cases mistake, as in where should we use I and where should we use me. So there is a subject case and there is an object case and there is a possessive case. So looking at that particular pronoun, you need to check, is it the subject here? Is it the object of the sentence here? Or am I using it to show possession? If it is the subject, I must say I and not me, we, not us, and so on. If it is the object, then we should say me, us, him, her, them. And if it is used to show the possession, then it should be mine, yours, it's, their, etc. Topic number 3. So pronoun is basically 1 or 2 questions. Mostly it is 2 questions in the test. Modifiers. Now this is one very interesting topic in grammar section because this is where a lot of us make mistakes without even getting to know that those are incorrect usages. So basically there are 2 types of modifiers. And why do we call them modifiers? Because This error is related to those words that modify the meaning of a subject or an adverb or adjective. So basically, there are two types of modifying mistakes people make. One is called the dangling modifier, other is called the misplaced modifier. So misplaced modifier is very, very simple usage. You're using all the words there which are correct. Only the sequence of the words is a little bit misplaced, and hence the name misplaced modifiers. So I can say the tickets would be sold only on the day of the match. When I say so, only means that you don't get the tickets on other days. You get the tickets only the day the match is being played. But if I say only tickets would be sold on the day of the match, then it twists the meaning completely. And this means you won't have the match happening that day. It'll only be the tickets that would be sold. So this is called misplaced modifier mistake. The words not only have to be correct, they have to be placed correctly. Their positioning should also be absolutely fine. The other type of errors we get to see in modifiers is called dangling modifier mistakes. Now, dangling basically means hanging in middle without any proper attachment. So dangling modifier error is where you have the adjective phrase or the modifier word there, but the word it should be used for is totally missing from the scene. So if I say, while running for the bus, comma, my book fell in the mud. A lot of people think this sentence is correct, but it actually has a dangling modifier error in it, as in while running for the bus, and then I say my book. Is it the book that's running for the bus, or is it me who's running for the bus? Obviously, I am running for the bus. So this mistake is dangling modifier mistake. And how do we correct it? By putting the subject, correct subject after the comma. So the correct version of this sentence would be, while I was running for the bus, comma, my book fell in the mud. Or I can say, while running for the bus, comma, I dropped my book in the mud. So dangling modifier. So I repeat, there are two kinds of modifier errors you get to see on the test. One is the misplaced modifier. The other is the dangling modifier. Now this topic also contributes about 1 to 2 questions in the test. The next is faulty comparison. Faulty as in the comparison is being made, but you're not making it properly, and it is leading to some other meaning than what you intended to convey. So if I say, my house is more beautiful than you, then that's a faulty comparison basically. You need to compare a house with a house. You can't compare a house with a person. So this is faulty comparison. So how do we correct it? My house is more beautiful than your house or yours. That will set the whole meaning right, and we call it faulty comparison. We usually get maybe, half of the test won't have a question on it, and half of the test will have about 1 question in the test. So that's because this topic is really easy and you just need to learn 1 or 2 points here. And this category of question is called faulty comparison. Next type of questions we get to see in grammar part of writing is idioms. So idioms, as in, we don't mean to say proverbs here. By idiom, what they want to check you for is basically phrasal verbs, as in, are you using the correct preposition after the word? And this basically is a conventional usage. So you don't have any rules that you can learn here per se. You need to know which verb or adjective takes what particle. So I can say subscribe. If I say subscribe, I will have to say to there. I can't say in, on, or out. etc. So subscribe to, involve in or with, depending on what meaning you want to convey. Comply with, so you must comply with the regulations. Abide by, you must abide by the rules here. So there are quite a few verbs which take very, very specific particles after them. And when they check you for this part of writing, they call it idiom. So you get about 1 or 2 questions from idiom in the writing section. And last but not the least is parallelism. Parallelism is basically a sentence structure question. So when you might be using all correct words there in the sentence, but are they in the same form? Is the structure parallel or correct is what we call parallelism error. So if I say she loves to dance and singing, so that's absolutely wrong usage. You're using a gerund and you're using an infinitive. So either you should use both infinitives there, or you should use both gerunds in this structure. So then this, if you correct this, this will be called a parallelism correction. So if you want to use this sentence correctly, I'll either say she loves singing and dancing, or I'll say she loves to sing and dance. So this is basically called parallelism mistake. We get about 2 questions from this section, this topic also. So that's the whole overview of the grammar section of the writing. Now let's take up a few actual questions from one of the SAT papers. So I'll just share a paper with you here, and then we take this out. Yeah. So this is the paper. I'll just take out the relevant questions. Let's begin with the subject verb agreement. That's the trickiest of all questions in grammar section, writing section. So we move on to, this is April 2017 actual SAT paper. So let's have a look at some actual questions here. Question number 11. Yeah, so this is a subject verb agreement question. Let's read this out. The best way to address, so that's the subject here. The best way to address these concerns about accuracy and privacy. So when you read out this whole sentence, you've got 2 words here just before the verb, that's accuracy and privacy. If we don't read it carefully, we'll assume that these are the subject words, and we might end up choosing a plural verb here. But if I read this carefully, to is the preposition, and as I told you earlier, when you have a preposition, the next part becomes the prepositional phrase. So this whole thing is a prepositional phrase that needs to be cancelled. The subject here is the best way, which is singular subject. So obviously I cannot say are here, that goes out. That's the wrong answer because it's a plural verb. Have is also plural, so this also goes out. Now choosing between had been and is, obviously when I look at the context of this whole thing, the entire paragraph is in present tense, so obviously I cannot say a had, which is a past tense. So obviously the verb has to be is. The best way to address these concerns about accuracy and privacy, you can cancel out the prepositional phrase to address these concerns about accuracy and privacy. That's the extra piece here. Subject is the best way and the verb has to be is. So the answer here should be D. Now, moving on to next question in subject verb agreement. So this is how easy the questions can be here, but they are tricky. If you don't miss out, if you don't pay attention to the prepositional phrase, you're going to make a mistake here. Okay, so this is one more question. Question number 18. This is also a subject-verb agreement question. Now, attracted by these resources, so we have a comma here. That means this part is an extra phrase. I can ignore it completely when I'm doing a subject-verb agreement question. Many different kinds of wildlife. So if I look at this part very, very carefully, of is the preposition here. So obviously, of wildlife, this turns out to be a prepositional phrase. We cancel this out. Subject is many different kinds. And when I say kinds, that obviously is plural. So I cannot take a singular verb here. That's point number one. So inhabits, that's the singular verb that goes out. A cannot be the answer. Now choosing between B, C, and D. Now this becomes a tenses question. I need to pick the correct tense here. All of them are present tense. I'll have to have a look at what kind of verb is needed here. And for that, we need to go back to the whole paragraph and check the answer. The ponds that form as a result of dams retain. So that's a simple present tense. Attracted by these resources, many different kinds of wildlife. Since this is in present tense, if I go back, I'm going to see quite a few other sentences also in the present tense. And simple present tense. That means here also I need to take a simple present tense, and that's B. So number one, it's a plural verb, so it matches with the subject. And number two, it is simple present tense, so it matches with the context also. So that's why B has to be the answer here. So these are subject verb agreement question. There's okay, let's move on to next topic now, because we need to cover the whole set of questions here. One moment. Pronoun agreement is question number 44. So we move to that. Okay, here it is. However, proponents contend that the investment is worthwhile because they enable any of them, and then we have it. Now, I need to read the sentence carefully and see what the noun for this particular pronoun, they, is for me. And if I go to this, my subject is the investment. The investment is the subject, so obviously I cannot say they here. I need to use a singular verb, and so those goes out, they goes out, any of them. I'm talking about only one thing, so obviously it has to be one and not many, so it has to be it. It enables companies to retain the most talented employees. So this was a pronoun question. With a pronoun question, you must always locate the noun it is being used for and then connect that noun with the pronoun. So if the noun is singular, the pronoun has to be singular. If the noun has a gender, if it is masculine, the pronoun has to be masculine. And if it is an ambiguous pronoun, as in you have multiple nouns there and you are not sure which noun it is connecting back to, then we'll change the pronoun to a noun to make it very, very clear. So that's the kind of questions you get from pronoun agreement. Moving on to the next topic example, that's modifier question. So we have one question in this test, which is basically a modifier question. And that's question number 38. So let's move to that. Now, this question, again, a lot of people make mistake with this topic, and it's a very, very easy question if you understand the logic of it. So looking at this one, question number 38, in determining how working time and responsibilities would be divided, steps were taken by Levine and Rocco to ensure. Who will determine how responsibilities would be divided? Is it the steps who will determine it? Is it the people who will determine it? Obviously, it has to be people. So any option that doesn't mention the subject here, as in the doer of the action, who will do it, is a dangling modifier mistake. So in determining how the responsibilities would be divided, let's read all the options. A says steps were taken. That means steps determine who will divide the responsibility. Now that's absurd and we can't take it. So A goes out. There were steps taken. Now again, this is like steps, which becomes the subject, which is again wrong. So we'll not take this one. Levine and Rocco took steps. Now this is where you mention who is going to do that, who did that. So this becomes the subject of the sentence. In determining how responsibilities would be divided, these two people took steps to ensure that something was done. So this is the correct answer. If we look at D, just to be sure we've chosen the correct option, Levine and Rocco's steps. Any noun that has an apostrophe attached to it and these two collectively take up this apostrophe obviously cannot be the subject of the sentence. They are there only to show the possession. So obviously steps is the subject here, and steps cannot be my subject of this sentence. I need to mention the person or the people who are doing it or did it. And that's why C becomes the answer. Wherever you find this question, whenever you'll do any actual SAT test, you'll always find one question like this. And this is how it should be answered, always. Read the first phrase carefully and then see what you need there. It has to be the doer of the action and it has to be a person most of the time. So you need to look at the options and see which one is talking about the people rather than the object, and that becomes your correct answer. So this is how you answer the modifier question. Now, just to show you the faulty comparison question, that's question number 43. Yeah, there it is. We'll have to read the whole sentence. So we go back a little. And they always place this question where you have the switch in the pages so that you miss out on the context before. Job sharing initiatives may also involve some extra cost for companies, since the salaries and cost of benefits for two job sharing employees are usually higher. So what are you talking about here? Salary and cost of benefits. So you're talking plural things here. So if I compare, this say that of, this says those of, being is always the wrong answer. So this one you can eliminate by the thumb rule. So A goes out. That is singular while you're saying salaries. So, and cost, that's plural. You're not talking one thing here, you're talking two things together. And that's why that of goes out. And if you delete the whole thing, then you'll end up comparing salaries and cost with employee, which is a faulty comparison again. So that's why the answer has to be C here, which is plural. So you say salaries and cost for two job sharing employees are usually higher than those for a single employee, because this those is not for a person. This those is used for the salaries and the cost, which is plural, which is two things taken together. So this question is called faulty comparison question. And you're going to usually find one question like this in the test. You need to see what is being compared with what and then connect the two together. One more question, that's question number 24. And that's based on idioms. I'll try and quickly flip it. So you get about 2 to 3 questions or 4 questions on subject-verb agreement, about 1 or 2 questions on pronoun agreement. Modifier is usually 1 question. Faulty comparison is 1 or 2 questions, and idioms is usually 2 questions in the test. So coming to this idiom question, this again, it's a conventional question. There are no rules per se. You just need to know what goes with what. So if we read this question, question number 24, it was a triumph that added to Florence's reputation. When you say reputation, what do you say? Reputation from, reputation for, reputation to, or reputation with? Now with reputation, you obviously only say for. You never say reputation from or reputation to or reputation with. So here the answer choice has to be very, very clear. It will be B and nothing else. With this type of questions, as I said, there are no rules to be followed. So you'll have to either you know it or you don't know it. You can't make a guess here. So if you know it, you're going to get it always right. And if you don't know it, then chances are it will be like a lottery. You just try your luck and you might just get it right. So how do you improve in such questions? You keep making a list of all the questions you find in the tests or the practice materials you do, and then keep locating those questions. And wherever you make a mistake, make a note of it and make sure you know that usage then. You don't make the same mistake twice over. And that's how you build up your knowledge. So that was a glimpse of what all topics we get in grammar section of the SAT and how we approach these questions, how we eliminate the options, and how we reach the correct answer. For the resources you can use to get more knowledge on these topics, you may use a book called College Panda SAT Writing. That's a very, very good resource to use. Another very good book that you can refer to is Erika Melzer SAT Writing. That's an excellent resource if you want to build up, your knowledge of SAT writing section. I hand this over to Devesh now if we have any questions.
Yes. First of all, thank you so much, ma'am. Wonderful session. I'm a math person, so I can understand math and I can solve math pretty well. But this was very helpful, and I'm sure the students also learned a lot, and they actually identified the different kind of problems that they will face in the writing section when they're solving the writing section. So that's wonderful, ma'am.
Right.
So with that, I'm now inviting Ms. Pavni from Bangalore International School to
Devesh, you can stop the screen share at
Yes, ma'am. You can stop the screen share, ma'am, because I think Pavni will be sharing her screen. She does have a presentation. Yes. So a very warm welcome to you, Pavni, and it's great to have you here in the session today. And we are looking.
End it at your end. Just stop the screen share.
Harshal, I think you'll have to stop sharing if you can do that. Harshal? Pavni, or maybe you can, no, it won't work.
Yeah, I won't be able to share the screen. I think, Monica, you have an option to stop sharing. There's an option.
There will be an option on the top panel.
I know that. It doesn't seem to be there.
Can you please check now, ma'am, Pavni ma'am?
Just trying. Okay, this says this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want? Yeah, I think I can share my screen now. Yes. Yeah, thank you, Devesh, for your warm welcome. I'm glad to be here and to give some inputs to the students who are part of the session about a little bit on anxiety management. While this, the term, word anxiety may be quite intimidating for anybody to hear, but what I read definitely about anxiety is some degree of anxiety is quite normal, and it's healthy. In fact, it will help students or anybody for that matter to be cautious enough while they are taking any particular job, or for that matter in this scenario about a test prep. So let's look into some aspects of what causes anxiety. So fear of failure. So yes, while you have not, I mean, lack of adequate preparation and bad experience with taking tests previously. So without proper preparation, often you have a fear of failure in the examination when you step into the exam, or a day before, 2 days before. So you have that anxiety on the fear of failure, because you have done all the required arrangements to take the examination, but without proper preparation well in advance, you cannot have a last minute batting for standardized tests like these. So it's even for the final examinations, we often in India we have a end of year examination, so we often tend to push to the last minute, and have night outs for the 2 days before the examination, and try to have those barely passing marks. So that really does not work in a standardized test like SAT and ACT, where a lot of preparation into math and as well as English is required, which needs at least 2 months of preparation. So fear of failure is one very big cause of the anxiety, lack of adequate preparation. And sometimes there may be a the you have given examinations before at a test center, and you did not have a nice experience with the examination or the testing time. Your day was not good on that day. Probably that might also cause anxiety when you are going for the next attempt. So these are the causes, major causes. There are quite many others that pertain to individual experiences, but these are the main causes for anxiety. So how to beat test anxiety? So it's very, very important that you prepare well for the examination. It's very well known that we have discussed earlier as well. When you push everything to the last minute, it's quite common that you feel that anxiety. So when you prepare well for the examination, particularly for examinations like SAT and ACT, it is highly, highly recommended that you at least have 2 to 3 months of preparation time. So if you do not have that, then definitely you will be at a situation that you experience certain level of anxiety. So it is very, very important. Preparation has a lot of practice that involves the test preparation, mock tests. What I recommend my students personally is that you need to definitely take 4 practice tests, full length practice tests before the examination. And again, I would not recommend those practice tests to be back and forth, but it should need to have a certain gap between them. The ideal gap that I would suggest is at least 5 days of gap between one practice full length practice test to the next practice test. That means at least 2 weeks before, your complete preparation for the test has to complete, right? And the day before, we are talking about not night out, but having a good night's sleep before the examination. You need to have a very calm and presence of mind the day you wake up for the examination. All these exams happen early in the morning. You're expected to reach the test center your examination starts at 8 o'clock. So that means at least half an hour to 45 minutes, especially during the COVID time, because a lot, being a test coordinator at our test center during the COVID times as well, I suggest students to reach the test center at least by 7:15. That means you wake up and, from the time to your house to reach the test center might take, you calculate that distance time and try to reach the test center early. So that means you need to have a good night's sleep before to have, less anxiety levels on the test day morning. Fuel up. What I recommend, do not go empty stomach. Please make sure you eat something before you leave at home and carry some snacks, when you go to the test center. With empty stomach, the anxiety levels just build up. I see a lot of students running to the test center 5 minutes before the test starting time, and they barely might have not eaten anything. Their energy is completely down at that time. And I can imagine the anxiety levels in them, in their facial expressions, is really, really very high. So what I suggest is wake up early, have a good night's sleep before, reach the test center early, eat something before you leave or after you reach the test center. That's up to you. And prepare yourself before, I mean to say at least 2 months before preparation is very much recommended. And have a very calm, mentality. Do not worry about remembering formulas. Do not worry about referring books on the test day morning. That is something that I would highly recommend not to be done. Not just for the standardized tests, but in general, for any tests, I think that is one thing that you should try avoiding, because the last minute, whatever you read might be in your brain or erase the memory that you have, kept for so long in that anxiety. Have a positive attitude. Think that you will do well. Your day is good. Your day is time. And then, with a nice positive attitude, I'm sure you can definitely do well in your examination. One of the very important things that that I observed in students is once the examination started, so there's a particular set of instructions that the proctor reads, as well as there are instructions for you to read. It's very, very important for a student to pay attention to those instructions. If you have already given those examinations before, you know those instructions, then it is fine. But sometimes it is very, very crucial instructions that I suggest students to pay attention to. I've seen students who did not pay attention to the instructions initially have done mistakes. Maybe they have done answers in a different section altogether, and have faced issues at the end of the exam. Okay, I've done this, what to do? A lot of anxiety also happens during the exam time. Even if you have taken everything well before, listen to the instructions, I think that also causes anxiety during the test time, right? So just start, what I mean to say here is, once you have spent some time for the instruction, there is a start time and end time. It is very important to use the time between that to complete the sections and the questions given very, very, in a timed manner, very structured manner. So if you do not start, like if you just start, pay more attention on instructions and not start answering the questions, will also cause anxiety at the end of the section time. So it's very important, as the time starts for the section, start working on your questions and answering them. And answering them in a right manner. Like there are multiple choice questions, do not answer on the textbook. Reading the instructions and listening to the instructions come into play. So don't pay attention to what others, it's all understood. It's very important that you work on your own thing. Do not really see what others are doing, which page they are in. Do not worry about that. Work on your own test preparation. None of your series matches with the student who sits beside you. So it's very important to just pay attention to what you are doing. That's all. And watch the clock. It's very important. Like these sections, these exams are timed. Any exam for that matter is timed. So you need to definitely watch out what time is the test starting, what time it is ending, how much time you have more to work on that particular section, and when is the break starting, break ending. All these things are very, very important. So if you are late working on any particular section, you don't have sufficient time to answer, then you don't have, of course, your overall performance affects, isn't it? So this is very, very important points what I have listed out here for you all to take care while doing the test and before the test happens in terms of the preparation and other things.
Wonderful.
I think that's it from my side today.
Superb. Thank you so much, Pavni. Very, very well presented, and I think very practical advices. Some things which all the students must keep in mind, and these are the things which we don't usually discuss. We have a standard set of this instructions which we follow, but these are really very practical advices. So I'm sure I think students will benefit very well and tremendously with these instructions. So thank you so much, Pavni, for joining.
I really hope so too. It's definitely out of my experience as a test coordinator observing students, throughout the exam time and before the exam time. I really hope it helps the students who are part of this session today.
Definitely. And we are also broadcasting it live on YouTube, and this session will be there on YouTube forever. So I think people in the future also who are not here right now will benefit with the help of this. So
wonderful.
Once again, thank you so much, Pavni, for joining us today. It was a pleasure having you here, and it was great. Thank you for sharing your advice and your insights with us and with the students.
Thank you, Devesh, for the opportunity.
And thank you, Monika ma'am. We are almost coming towards the end of the session. So we are looking forward to starting the next session, which is a session on reading. So we just did grammar, and now the next session is going to be on critical reading. All the students who are here right now, just join us back in the next 15 minutes, actually in the next 12 minutes as we begin the session at 4 o'clock. So have a good evening and see you all back in 15 minutes. Thank you so much for joining.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.